So you just touched on my next thread of questioning here. I want to get into the clean electricity regulations, which when you did your drawing the line, that was the one that was not counted in the numbers, but it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
18 billion.
Of all the climate change initiatives, that's the behemoth. And they suggest that the electrical grid must increase by a factor of 2.5 and do so within 26 years and 2 weeks. Meanwhile, on any given day, up to 87% of our power comes from natural gas and coal. So that means not only do we have to replace 80% of our current power, but then multiply it by 2.5. How are we supposed to accomplish that? Is there any realistic way to do this?
No, there is not. And you yourself, by just stating, some of the numbers that you have, we're 80% fossil fuel today, to not only transition that's about 3,500, 4,000 megawatts, to transition that over 4,000 megawatts, to transition that to something that is zero carbon, plus build out your entire system by 2.5 times, not just your generation system, but your distribution system. And none of that is possible. None of that is possible in any way. And those are SaskPower's words, not my words or your words. And, the fact that you went through those numbers tells me that you have paid more attention to what the consequences of the reality of this policy are to Saskatchewan people than the federal government did. And so the SaskPower put forward when we did our drawing the line piece on the clean electricity regulations is not only is it not possible, but to even attempt it is unaffordable. And when you look at, what does the focus have to be from a Saskatchewan perspective, understanding that we own the power utility, the people own the power utility. What are the points that we really need to focus on as we, transition to a lower carbon electrical infrastructure? Well, 1, it has to be affordable. 2, it has to be reliable. And 3, you continually reduce the emissions in the infrastructure that you have. So how do you keep it affordable? You utilize the life cycle of the assets that you have. And so that is what we're going to do. And SaskPower is very upfront. Our gas plants that we have, 10 of them, they're going to run out to the end of their life cycle. We have a few coal plants. We'll have a decision to make maybe in around 2030s if we're going to continue to run those as coal-fired plants, or if we're going to transition those to natural gas at that point in time, and that'll be a decision to make. Either is possible, but they are going to run out to the end of their life cycle, which is 2038, 2042 in many cases, and they should. That is how we can ensure that we're providing the most affordable power that we can to Saskatchewan residents. What we'll have to do alongside this now and to ensure that power is reliable into the future is, yes, we're going to build some renewables to drive that cost point down. But 2 is to seriously look at because we have no other options, is a nuclear power plant, starting with SMRs. But likely that conversation is going to have to go beyond 1 and 2 SMRs to a multiple. And I think ultimately end with the whole conversation around large reactors as well in the province. That will allow us in the years ahead to be energy independent when it comes to our electricity that we are producing. We don't want to be reliant on another province or another state or another country for our electricity. I don't think, quite frankly, we can be when you look at the industries that are reliant on power here today. 2, the transmission line is going to act as our battery, all of our transmission lines, but in particular the one we're building, where we'll be able to flex up and flex down with some of the renewables that we will incorporate to, drive that cost point down. Is all of this going to happen by 2035? Not a chance. Even if we desperately wanted it to, it still isn't going to happen by 2035. 1, because it'll cost $18 billion more, and 2, it isn't possible. You still won't get there. So we're going to take a very, I think, a pragmatic view as to, how do we keep our power system reliable, affordable, and continue to lower the emissions in it over the course of the next number of years. And can we achieve that by 2050? We think we likely can. Is it a line in the sand that it needs to be 2050? It can't be 2030, 2048 or 2052. Not at all. We just make what are the best decisions in the interest of Saskatchewan people in providing that affordable, that reliable, and that cleaner power into the future.
So you anticipated some of my questions here. One thing I did want to expand on, you mentioned this about the transmission. Actually, I have a column that's written right now what I do about this. When you drive down Highway 6 towards Estevan, and you see the twinning that's happening for the highway there. And the reality is that you're only doing a few kilometers at a time, and it's going to take a few years to get all the way to Weyburn. And that's just one highway. Yeah. But what the federal government is proposing for electricity is the equivalent of twinning every single highway and every single road and every freeway and every bridge and every back alley and every street across the entire province and country at the same time. It's just unfathomably enormous, but no one else seems to get that.
So never mind the cost of doing that. What's the cost of clearing the snow? These are things that just are not discussed at the federal level. And so I say you can ignore reality for a period of time, and we see our federal government do that in many of their decisions. You can't ignore the consequences of reality. And, we're seeing that with, much of the inflation that we're experiencing as individuals and families when we fuel our vehicle up, when we go to the grocery store, when we go to the hardware store. They're all can be traced back largely to an increase in the cost of fuel, which is designed by policy, by this federal government, to continue to increase the cost of fuel, which is pushing up the inflationary aspects of life that families, households are facing across this nation, thereby pushing up our interest rates, which I would say young families that have a mortgage on their home are greatly feeling. Businesses, industry, small businesses are feeling those mortgage increases. And so what we are experiencing is really a federal government that ignored reality, thought they could get away with it, but now we are seeing what the consequences of ignoring that reality are.
So you touched on nuclear, and it appears your government is going all in on nuclear. You've recently funded $80 million for our first micro-reactor with Westinghouse, the eVinci. And you're also working with what we call GE Hitachi for our first SMR. And yet SaskPower still says the decision will be made in 2029. I've asked you this before, but it sure seems like that decision's already made.
I think what we'll have to do is have a very serious conversation between SaskPower and the government of Saskatchewan around, solidifying officially what that decision is. We don't have any other options at this point. And so, barring some innovation that, drops from the sky, batteries aren't going to work with renewables for any type of long-term reliable base load power. Some will tell you it is, but they're wrong.
They're totally wrong.
So we can outbuild our hydro to some degree and squeak a few megawatts here or there. But when we look at replacing, over time, the coal-fired power that we have, when you look at replacing over time the natural gas-fired power that we have, we don't have any other options that I can foresee or that anyone else can mention to me outside of nuclear, with some outbuild of the renewables to drive that cost point down, and then build those interconnects to really allow for that flex space. It's the only option that we have, and I think we're going to have to solidify that in writing in the not too distant future. There's really three sizes of nuclear reactors that are and will be available. You have the large ones that are 1,000 megawatts. You have the 300 or so megawatts, which are the SMRs, which we're looking very seriously at in that Estevan area. And you don't build one, you usually twin them. And then you have the smaller micro reactors, of which you saw an announcement on at the Saskatchewan Research Council, which are interesting, is they're 5 megawatts of electricity, and I believe that one is 12 or 13 of thermal as well. And you think of the utilization of each of those, the large reactors to really keep the bulk of your base load going, the SMRs that are that smaller addition to your electrical system. And then those micro reactors could really be utilized in a mine type setting or a northern community setting, not only in Saskatchewan or across northern areas of Canada. And so when you look at put all of that together with an agreement, and I would say the most impactful agreement at COP28 was 24 countries coming together, including Canada, to sign on to a tripling of their nuclear power footprint. That's going from 400 reactors in the world today to 1,200. When you combine that with, we're the second largest uranium producing region in the world is Saskatchewan, Canada. Another uranium mine, at least coming through the regulatory process as we speak. Our largest uranium company that has partnered with many of the others is now a partner in purchasing what is one of the largest nuclear power corporations in the world in Westinghouse Electric, which was very present and prominent at our Saskatchewan booth in Dubai at COP28. The opportunities, not only in providing fuel for those additional 800 reactors that will come on, but actually for Saskatchewan to participate in some way, shape, or form in the supply chain of that whole nuclear power industry, I think can't be discounted. And so, are we interested in nuclear power moving forward? Not only to power our future in this province, but interested in being, part of the forefront of the expansion of nuclear power and providing that nuclear fuel, uranium, to the world.
So you've touched on large nuclear a few times here, and I wanted to ask you, how significant was Cameco's purchase of half of Westinghouse? Are you considering, perhaps small modular reactors at Estevan and large reactors at Elbow?
I don't know if at Elbow, but when you look at, large reactors come into play and really become, I think, useful in a larger electrical system, of which Saskatchewan's electrical system is growing. And we're experiencing growth due to industrial investment. The largest potash mine in the world is being built here right now. Looking at a copper mine, another uranium mine. We have canola crush plants coming up. The upgrader's doing an expansion. These are all industries that require power, and that's where we're seeing a lot of our growth in this province. It's not necessarily due to every other garage filling up with the Teslas. However, that may come as well and would have a further strain on our generation grid. So we might not be quite large enough, understanding that you don't build one, you build twins, ideally, to get some of the, the cost competitiveness and some of the ongoing maintenance. It just works better when you have two. We may not be quite in that space just yet. However, when you start to look at some of the power needs of our province and where that's required, and some of the power needs of maybe a neighboring province of Alberta, and where that is actually required, there starts to become some obvious synergies on where we might be able to work more closely together in not only looking at the types of generation facilities that we have, but actually co-locating to some degree. And so, not there by any means at this point in time, but when it comes to nuclear reactors, I think there's some additional opportunities that even go beyond our borders that are open for discussion.